When you build this, you really need patience. Don't force anything. If something doesn't quite fit, i.e. the tabs, you'll see I keep saying sand them down. Well, sand them down and make sure everything is nicely fitting without too much brute force needed. You know, you can use a mallet to knock things into place, but make sure that you're not pushing something that's not going to go. That's what I'm trying to get at. Also, I think it's important to point out, as I was coming to the final part and screwing up the Jasper to the chassis case, whatever you want to call it, enclosure, what I call the PCB chassis, which is the thing that you finally screw up from the rear of from the underside of the case. I found that the holes weren't lining up. They lined up when I dry fitted it, but they didn't when I was putting the thing together after it had been glued. So my suggestion there is, and what I did was took it apart and I kind of widened the holes a little bit. I kind of used a 3mm drill or 4mm drill, whatever it was. I think it's a 3mm drill, and just kind of jiggled it about to make those holes bigger. So if you do that from the beginning, I mean, don't make them too big because you don't want the heads of the screws to go through, but you want enough just to give you a little bit of movement, so you can just find where the hex screw is, the hex spacers on the underside. Things like that, that's what you've got to be careful of. Don't force it. I mean, first part, we're going to do some sanding and some oiling. There's a few parts to sand, the two end cheeks. The more sanding that you do, the better the quality of this, and it's worth spending a bit of time. I guess you could do it afterwards, but it's easier while the thing is apart. The other sanding that needs to be done are on all the parts where the tabs are. They'll probably need a little bit of a chamfer on the edge, just to make it fit a little bit easier when you're pushing the whole thing together. You don't want to take too much off that it's loose, but you don't want it to be a battle to get the parts on. Right, we've done our sanding. What you want to make sure is with each of the parts and on each side that the tabs go into the holes easily. It goes in tight, but it's easy to get in, you'll see. Okay, one thing I've just noticed, putting the second side on the dry fit, it wasn't going as tight in as what I hoped for. And what it is actually inside, and I was warned about this, I forgot all about it, that where they mill the CNC machine, cut these thin holes, there's a lot of sawdust inside which needs hooking out. I'm using just a little needle file. So make sure these are clear when you put this thing together, because it won't go together properly. 6mm brass hex spacer doodads. you need to put these on the underside of your Jasper build. Right, so just replace your screws and put these little brass inserts. This is important because this chassis is 6mm and everything lines up, so you've got to put them on. If you like, you can also put your front metal panel on. I would show you how to do this, but you can work it out. There's big holes at the bottom, small holes at the top. They go over the hex spaces between your Jasper PCB and top panel. Bag of stuff. Inside here also is, you have 6 of these little brass M3 rivet stud things. You got 2 goes into the keyboard chassis. This is the keyboard chassis. This is the front part. There's holes cut in there, and also in the base of the Jasper, we've got 4 holes around the battery compartment. These little brass doodads go in there. What we're going to do is just drill out the hole a little bit bigger on the keyboard chassis, on the battery base. Next, we want to insert the brass doodads into the holes you just drilled. The best way of doing this, I've found, is find a long M3 screw and put it in. Now these should go in tightly. That you will have to hammer this in, which is good because you want it to be tight. Oh look, and I can push it in, but it takes a lot of strength, and that is enough for this to hold the keyboard down when you screw the whole thing together. You really want it tight, so that's perfect. I mean, that was a 30-second imperial drill bit, and 4mm, I think it's the same. It will go in tight in there. Stud doodad things in on the base plate. The thinner side is the back, and the longer bit is the front. So keyboard chassis is along here, and the rear of it's up here. We're going to put in the battery holder next, which we're just going to hot glue in. So I put it on a flat surface, and you just press that down. That means it's, it's flat on the underside. Right, so gluing, all you want to do is get a bead of glue, just enough to hold this all the way around the outside. You can also put it around the brass studs just to hold them a little bit. Final bit of prep is getting your plastic insert and making sure it fits nicely in the slot in here, which it isn't. It's tight. It always is a little bit tight. That's what happens. So all you have to do with this is probably better on this side with the 2 wasp IO things. I found the best way of doing this is just on a flat surface, just to sand this like this. He says doing it on his hand, but it doesn't take much to sand this down. I mean, if there's any obvious Yeah, it's a little bit funny around there on this one. Just sand it down. Perfect. So yeah, actually this one doesn't need any gluing whatsoever. So just a little bit of filing on that edge has got it in there nicely. When it's in, right, we're going to do, the next part we're going to do is a kind of a dry fit. When you've got it all together, and at the very end actually, when you've glued it, you can see if all of these line up. If they don't, just file them out with a needle file. But they tend to be alright. But here we go, let's go on to the dry fit. We're going to start with the left hand cheek, left hand, that's the right hand. And what we'll tend to do is put it on a nice flat surface. Start with the base. Now remember the rear of this is this side, the smaller side. So let's put that in first. You slot these in. Now, if you've done your sanding, this should just sort of go in. This is where you find out if it's too tight. And you can adjust it accordingly. That is too tight, so that's a good start. Really too tight. Alright, let's try that again. Oh, did it? Oh no. Okay, well, I'll give you a hand. Let me just do this a second. I'll be with you in 2 shakes of a shaky thing, okay? Okay, so that's that part. Keyboard chassis, remember the 2 holes, the need with the brass inserts needs to be at the top, at the front. So, here are the brass inserts at the top of the keyboard chassis and at the front of the case. So slot that in. Now onto this is the actual PCB chassis. Again, you've got a front and a back. The back is the thinner side, like the base. It should slot over the top of where the battery holder is. I see. Again, if all these parts are tight, you know, you can sand them down. It's not a big problem. And then finally, the rear slots in nicely. So, next part is the fun part. Is getting the top on, and this requires a real lot of patience and fiddling. You kind of line up all the holes. And it takes just a little bit of fiddling, really. Then once it's in, that actually went really easy. Then just push the whole lot down, and there you have it. Remember, this is a dry fit. I mean, this is just to check that it all fits together, that you don't need to sand any of these tabs down. Making sure everything lines up. You can actually at this point go screw this in and screw the underside in, just to make sure everything lines up. It should do. I've not had one that doesn't. Right, so we're ready to put everything together. We've cleared out all the holes, we've put in our brass inserts, we've put the battery holder in, and everything's sanded and all fits nicely. So let's do a little bit of gluing. Let's put dobs of glue in to all of these areas. Maybe it's probably easier doing it on this. You'll need a rag and you need some glue, PVA glue. This is Gorilla Wood glue, but you know, it doesn't really matter. PVA glue of some sort. Tend to put it on the tabs, onto the joint. nice. And finally, thin a bit to the back, so it sits over the top of the battery case, you'll see that. So let's put dobs of glue on here. So you push it all down so it's snug, just check it. So now glue on all these bits. Right, and on to the fiddly bit. Yeah, I've got a thumb full of glue. Fiddly bit of getting this all together now. Let's start. This doesn't matter how you do it, you just got to persevere. This back bit, probably not easy doing it this way round. Right, I think that's finally in. Push it all down. Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, we've got a wet rag just to clean off all the excess glue. Still, and it's all fitting okay. That you haven't pushed the sides in too much that you can't get this in. You'll probably need to get the IO side in first, and then that's it. So that all fits nicely. What you'll want to do now is let it dry. So put it on a solid surface. If need be, weigh it down, make sure it's not rocking around on a flat surface. And that should be it. Needs a bit of a clean there. Let's keep an eye on that glue, you don't want it showing too much on the outside. And there we have it, that's that part done. Morning, day 2, and you've left your Jasper case to glue, well, to set overnight after gluing it. We've got to do a little bit of hot gluing. Okay, so we want to put a bead of hot glue along the back edge. This just holds the bottom of the case a little bit more rigid. Yeah, it's really non-important, but I prefer to kind of lock it into place, and hot glue is the best way of doing it. So that's that little job done. The other place that you might want to put a bead of hot glue is along the front of the base cover. As you can see, it sort of flops around a little bit. You can either use ordinary glue or hot glue again. Hot glue is quicker, so I'm just going to put a bead of hot glue across here. You can maybe tack it down in the middle first. Right, yeah, just trim the bits, and then just hold it down while it cools off. If you've got the Mark 1 version, these little extra boards, there's 2 of them. This is from my prototype, so originally I hot glued it onto the first chassis, and so I've ripped them off. Not a great thing. Today I'm just going to drill a few holes and make sure that they actually sit in properly. Okay, to place our Jasper enhancement boards, we've got to drill a couple of holes. I've marked out the holes. I've placed them where I want them. Used a needle file just to mark a hole, and now I'm just going to do the holes. My 6mm spacer. Let's just put all of these in. That's that. Let's put the boards in. Job done. There we go. Okay, so we're on to the home straight. We've built a Jasper case. We've put in the extra boards on the Mark 1. We put the battery case in. Everything's all there, ready to put together. The best thing to do at this point is to carefully put it into position. Make sure all your cables aren't getting caught up in any kind of way. Now you've got to do that little thing of slotting it in. You can put a couple of the screws. These are 10mm. I think most of them, there's about 23 of them all together in the latest packs. Hook up your IOs. If you've got the MIDI, the AFX altitude MIDI board, you can sort all of that out. And then just plug in any extras that are on here. There's plenty of room in the back for any add-ons that you might want to do. And I know there's a few out there. You've got quite a bit of space at the back. Right, so you've kind of secured with the just 2 screws at the front on the keyboard panel, but you need to get all your 6 screws in on the back. You've got access holes to the underside, and this is a fiddly bit. You might want to use a little bit of blue tack or something on the end of the screw head. Again, instead of having all different screws, use the 10mm screws. As I say, there's 23 of them in the latest packs. If you've got hex screws with a flange on them, then use them. So when all is done, the last bit is screwing on putting your batteries in, putting in the cover. You should have some little sort of flanged 6mm screws, and then that's it. Oh no, one last part. So on the older types, some of you have got them and they had holes drilled with the 6mm inserts. Some of them are already in, but on the later ones now we have these little self-tapping screws. Much easier, because the problem that was getting that these holes weren't lining up easily and you had to do a little bit of filing, a little bit of bodging, and in all honesty I thought that was a little bit too much. So all you need to do is get yourself say a 2mm or even a 1mm drill bit, and just literally just go in and do a little pilot hole for each of these. This is much, much better because there isn't any pulling of the case around, and I found that I think with the pulling of the case, there was a danger on the first Mark 1 cases with the oak sides that it punched out the rear in some cases. So that's it. Your Wasp build done.